There we go. Okay. All right. I thought I was going to be late here for a second. Um, Welcome everybody. As you can see, it's just the two of us tonight. Rob is on a family trip, so we hope he enjoys himself and has a good time out in the wilderness. And if he gets captured by Bigfoot, please take pictures.
He's not here to tell me I can't do fun hairstyles.
Breaking the law. Breaking the law. Um, a couple of things before we get started on all of this. Some technical stuff that I want to let everybody know because for the last several weeks we've been kind of dealing with some streaming things. Um, Most of it is all based on Facebook and decisions that they made with their policies. A couple of months back, I think, maybe longer, maybe not quite that long. I don't know the exact time frame, but they stopped third-party apps like StreamYard and wherever from streaming live directly to or connecting to groups on Facebook. So we have not been able to do that, which is why I've been posting the links manually. So if you've noticed that, that's Facebook saying we don't want you to do that for some reason. Don't know why. And today, um, I can't apparently stream to our Facebook page because we don't have enough followers on the Facebook page yet. So if you're in the group where I posted a link to this and you're watching it from Facebook now, please go follow the page.
I posted a link about it in the group as well.
I did see that. So that way, if we get enough followers, we can stream directly to the page. You don't have to post any links. You'll be able to see it as it happens, and you don't got to worry about it. And everybody's happy, and Facebook can go do what they do. I can't say what I want them to do because it's a family show. So, but
They can
yeah,
go
that's
kick dirt.
yeah, they can go kick rocks and whatever they want to do. But yeah, so here we are. That's what we're doing. We had a heat wave in Ohio for a few days. It was dreadfully hot. It was a lot of stuff going on. How are things in Tennessee? How are things down in that area?
Pretty hot, usually around 90 to 95 degrees most days.
So when I say it was like 90-degree heat wave in Ohio, you're just like, oh, it was Tuesday.
Yeah. It was 85 today, and it's one of the coolest days we've had in about a week.
Well, that tells you how spoiled we are in Ohio usually for heat.
Yeah.
It's hotter this year than it usually gets around this time. It usually waits until later on. Don't mind this cat. She's what she's doing.
Why do cats do that?
She's just been in the mood lately, and she's been all over me for a few days. I don't know what her deal is, but that's
You gotta
what you have
make
to
it
look
talk,
forward
call it a
to.
foot parrot.
So that's what's been going on. So with all that being said, with Rob being out of town, we had a little discussion on what we were going to be talking about between me and Steven. And this is a topic that you suggested.
Yeah.
It's something we've talked a little bit about before in various shows, but there's been some advances and some news and various things that we can talk further about it and maybe clear up a couple of things too. So let's jump right into it. We're talking about AI, robotics, and quantum computing. And 2 out of 3 of these things are around relatively common now, whereas quantum computing may still confuse people, much as this cat confuses me. And we'll get to that in a little bit. We're going to start with the various advances in how AI has changed just in the past year or so, honestly, probably since the last time we talked about it. And I know you've been on top of this stuff because you've been super interested in the Neuralink type stuff, Steven. So what do you got for us as far as the latest in that area?
All right, so I did get an update on the guy who got the Neuralink. His name was Noland Arbaugh, and he was the first recipient of the Neuralink after being paralyzed during a diving accident, however you want to refer to it, 8 years ago. he has been paralyzed from the neck down ever since. He said his first experience of using, the Neuralink, he said it felt like using the Force, like from Star Wars, being able to control technology with his mind. And in less than 2 hours, 64 threads, thinner than a human hair, containing 1,024 electrodes, attaches to the patient's brain, allowing them to translate their very thoughts into actions. And he is the first in a 6-year trial to test the safety of the Neuralink, and he says that now he feels like the rest of us, just with a little computer in his head. No big deal. So when they asked why he was so ready and willing to be the first, guinea pig, essentially, he says that he just saw a lot of promise for the future of this technology and that it could do a lot of good for the world. Like uh, someone who's been paralyzed, like him, they might be able to regain motor function at some point in the future. Not yet, but that is something they could potentially do in the future. You know, and
No.
oh,
Oh,
go ahead.
don't let me interrupt. Keep going. If you got
Oh,
more, go
okay.
ahead.
Just like 3 more things. He
Yep.
also says there was what he refers to a laundry list of things that could go wrong with the surgery, but he feels that it was worth the risk, and he's willing to take all of the bad stuff that could potentially happen because someone's got to do it, so why not him? And he's trying to do this so that other people don't have to worry about their future. He says one of his favorite things is how much it has improved many of the little things in his life, such as sending a text message previously would take him about 10 to 15 minutes, if not longer, but now he can send a text in less than a minute. And he says that the way it works is they basically pop up with a virtual keyboard and he can just move his head around like this. Just move your head and it'll move the cursor on like a digital mouse and you just type with the digital keyboard. And it kind of reminds me, if anyone has ever used a VR headset, the way that you aim in a lot of the games, you just move your head and it moves the aiming reticle. So it kind of reminded me of like a VR headset, the way they were talking about it. Okay, now you can go.
Um, what's interesting about this is that from the perspective of just being able to, and yes, James, he is still paralyzed, so he's doing everything mentally. He's not doing anything particularly physically so much.
Yeah,
Um,
some people had mentioned that in the interview.
what's interesting and what I see a lot of potential in is some of the basic stuff that he would be able to do, like if he had like a smart home or if he had something that could better take care of him as a
Yeah,
person who was
like
severely
prosthetic
disabled.
limbs is what I was thinking.
Yeah, that kind of thing makes a lot of sense, and I'm interested in where that kind of thing goes. The issue comes up in that,
Hacking.
yeah, this thing is not just a one place. It's not just in you. It's connected to
Yeah,
the internet. It's connected to the web, and
Bluetooth.
it's all that kind of stuff. And because it has to be able to access, like if he's sending text messages, obviously it has to be
Yeah.
connected to
They said it
a.
was running on Bluetooth right now,
Mm.
like an advanced form of Bluetooth.
And so I'd that's the part where I'd be kind of skeptical of. I would want to know if there were ways that you could adjust certain things like that per person, um, to make it so that it was more secure.
But I mean, the hackers will always find a way.
Sure, I mean there's a
They could
science that
literally,
always evolving.
yeah, like they could literally give you a brain aneurysm, a heart attack, make you go, you know, do bad things to yourself.
And I've seen a lot of sci-fi things in movies and games, which yes, this is fantasy and this is stuff that's made up, but with this technology potentially
Science
could
fiction
happen.
is called science
Um,
fiction.
in that there's been a lot of times where there's a villain at the center of this web of intrigue, and it's a villain who actually doesn't have any sort of motor function. It's basically just somebody who's plugged into a pod or plugged into a machine, and they're doing everything with their mind because they have a machine that can do that. And not to say this guy is going to turn into a supervillain anytime soon, but potentially somebody could do that kind of thing if they were a very smart person and they were able to manipulate their connection to manipulate other things at the other
Terminator.
end. Yeah, so it's an interesting technology. I do see a lot of positive things for it. Very helpful stuff. Um, But on the other hand, there's a lot of things that could seriously go wrong, especially with access to social media and things. Because sometimes you don't want people to know what your thoughts are, and if it'll pick up on your thoughts, and like it might just pick up on stray thoughts if it's too sensitive.
Yeah, that's what
And
he was actually talking about that, and he said that it basically it will pick up his thoughts. Like not he says that it won't pick up his thoughts, but he has to think, move left and the cursor will move left. So it is picking up your thoughts somehow.
depending on the sensitivity, that's where you could all go wrong with it, because you could just be like, it could be as innocent as you just seeing an argument online and you just think to yourself, what a big old piece of whatever, and then it types it out for you and posts it, and you didn't mean to
And
it
then
was
you
just a
send
random
it.
thought, and now people are mad at you,
Yeah.
and you started a bunch of arguments. Or it could
Oh
be
wait,
something
that's
else, like,
me. That's just me with lack of self-control.
well, that's most people on Twitter. I think that's
Yeah.
like the Twitter X environment. But you could also like think like sometimes you're in a bad mood and you think somebody should slap that person upside, or somebody should beat that
Yep.
person, or somebody should do that,
And then it just
and
says it out loud.
and then you're in trouble for making terroristic threats.
Oh, what
So
like you bring up a good point. What if you're a mute, like you can't talk, like something happened to your vocal cords and you get this thing and it actually translates it into a voice, like a robotic voice, and then it's like you think, like you said, I don't like you, and then it says it out loud, I don't like you. And
mhm.
it's like, whoa, why not?
So there's a lot of directions that could go, and it's a fascinating field. Now you couple that with something else that you found recently as far as
Yeah.
robotics, which makes things really kind of interesting, because that's
The
straight up
face.
Terminator infiltrator kind of
Yes.
territory. Because in the original Terminator, before they got into the liquid metal stuff, the original Terminator was the robot, but with synthetic human skin that was made to look realistic, with facial features and all this other kind of stuff. Um, and you found an article on that says that they are doing that right now.
Yeah, it's got a really weird video with it too. Like you can actually see it in action.
If you
And
have the
yeah,
video handy, you
I
can post
sent
it in the
it in the
chat.
private chat. I don't think it'll let me post links in the comments.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll go ahead and try to copy paste from there then, because I didn't
Yeah.
know if that was an admin function or not. I guess maybe it is, but I'll copy it and copy link, and I'll put that in the main comments so people can watch that
And of
at
course,
their
it's in
leisure.
Tokyo.
Which is where you would expect to find killer robots.
Yeah. My favorite place, right?
So that's the link to the video, and it looks kind of comical when you first watch it, but it's also kind of disturbing the more you kind of think about it and think
Yeah.
about this is just the initial steps in the
Oh.
technology.
If you've seen Westworld or played Fallout 4, we're working our way there.
And they already have those, like that one lady robot who what was she was from Microsoft or something like that, and they had her at
Yeah.
conventions and whatnot, and she had semi-realistic facial
Oh, they're talking
functions
about
with.
putting organs in the robots now.
Oh yeah, because they want to make them as realistic as possible. Now that's another thing about the Terminator stories. They
Yep.
didn't get into as much in the movies, but in some of the excess stories and games and things, Skynet started crafting Terminators with internal organs to
Oh
better
no.
pass as a
The link
human.
is broken.
Uh, who knows? I might not have pasted it right either, but
It worked for me. I don't know.
let's see. I don't know. Well, we'll see about getting the.
I shared it the other day in the group if you can look back through there again.
Yeah, so if you folks are in the This Uncanny Earth official Facebook group,
Hang on.
uh, then you should be
No,
able to
I
find it.
lied. I did not share that one.
See,
I'll share it in the
dropping the
group
ball.
right now. I'll
All
share it
right,
in the group right now and try
dropping the
that.
ball, but picking it back up.
Yes. I share a lot of random stuff, as I'm sure you've noticed.
Um, now,
Okay, there it goes. It's posting now.
if I was on the laptop and the laptop didn't overheat every time I tried to run a show off of it, then we'd do the dual screen and I'd play the video for everybody.
Oh
But
yeah, my laptop does that too. You have the present button, but I've never tried to use it.
it won't work
Slides, video
the way you
files,
need to it
or share
on my
screen.
tablet. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it says something about 2 monitors.
Yeah, James,
Yeah, I don't know.
as far as some of this stuff, like back in the day, I could program a VCR and I could do some of that kind of stuff, and I'm a pretty more or less 90s to early 2000s tech savvy guy. I can do that stuff pretty good, and I've done pretty good with phones and tablets now.
Yeah, I
But as
think I'm
far as like,
I'm gonna agree with James on the whole Neuralink thing. Yeah, count
yeah,
me out. Count me out too.
as far as like actually trying to work anything out, and when my brain is private for a good reason, because I have a lot of stray thoughts that are probably not the nicest. I keep a lot of that to myself. Um, I've had anger problems when I was younger,
I
and if
broke
I'm
my
having a
toe
bad
trying to kick
day,
down a
like
door. I understand.
I don't I don't want to be just strolling online and then have something read my mind and say what the blah, 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 and just spit
Yep.
something out, because that would be the end of probably the show and probably my accounts and everything else. And so so yeah, I have my own personal filter on myself, but having a Neuralink I would see as being like, oh, let's just take that filter right off.
Yep.
Let's do that. Um Now, an important part of some of these things that doesn't get talked about a lot is the connection that a lot of it has to quantum computing. Um, and quantum computing, it's a tough area to talk about because
I
it
think I can explain it.
involves physical things that we don't really know how they work, just that they work.
But it's also really advanced binary code.
Mhm. It's because I did some looking up today to make sure I was brushed up on it, because it's been a while since I mean I'm always pretty up on my quantum mechanics and my quantum
Yeah.
theory, and but when you apply that to physical objects in physical data with the computers, it's a bit different, and
Increases exponentially.
the way that that works is it's not supposed to be able to calculate more things, it's just supposed to calculate
Faster.
more efficiently.
But
And
also not necessarily. It can be highly unstable, and they say that the more
mhm,
qubits you add, the more inaccurate it is.
because the more data you put in, the more it's going to skew the results. Because once you, the basic idea of quantum theory that we've talked about on the show before is that nothing in the universe, no particle has a set what it does and what it doesn't until it's
Superpositioning.
observed. Superposition is the scientific term for it. Once you observe it, it immediately becomes a particle, a wave, does what it does, and that's how you see reality.
And with quantum computing, they basically put the same mechanic onto a physical object, but
Hmm.
they say that the advantage, even though it can be inaccurate, is theoretically what would take a normal modern day supercomputer to calculate 1,000 years. A quantum computer could calculate that same thing in a matter of like 2 or 3 seconds. And they say that the quantum part is these actual things have superpositioning, but as soon as you look at the results, you have a couple of seconds to see the results before they just like disappear. And a normal person is not going to be able to have one of these in their house because that quantum computers have to be stored at as close to 0 degrees, absolute zero, as possible.
It's like some of the earliest regular computers. They were massive. They would take up walls and walls of whole
Yeah.
rooms just to do small amounts of data, and they ran so hot. The interesting part is the tie-in between quantum computing and AI, because they want AI to get to the point where when quantum computing, when it's making a decision, quote unquote, the AI picks the superposition for you before you
Look
observe
at
it
it.
so that it can accurately pick the right answer or the end of the computation.
But I pose a question to that. How can the AI observe it without changing it or
And
collapsing it?
that's a really interesting area
Like,
because
is it able to determine if it's an AI or a human looking at it? And if so, why does it make the conscious decision to collapse?
and that's the kind of the area that we're at right now. They are hoping that because AI can move faster than we can as far as thoughts and decision making, they're hoping that it can move fast enough to catch that superposition before it settles. And when it looks at the two options or the three options, the four options, and it says, okay, out of all these things, this is the most likely, so this must be the answer.
It's like
It's
Schrodinger's
hoping that it
cat.
will, yeah, it's hoping that it will then nudge it into where it would have been observed by us to begin with without us doing the observing. So when we do see it,
Mhm.
it's become an established quote unquote fact or point of data.
Like the cat in the box with the poison, you can assume the cat is probably going to get into the poison and, you know what happens. But even though you can assume that, you're not going to know for sure until you open the box. But once you open the box, you know for sure.
And that's what they're hoping that AI will develop to a point to be able to save us from, and that we don't have to wonder what the decision is going to be. It'll choose that for us and be correct. Which is that's another dangerous area because if the AI becomes a certain amount of awareness and decides that it knows what's best as far as the data presentation, it could deliberately choose data that's harmful or inaccurate or that could keep us from figuring certain things out, which is and that's getting into right
Yes,
now
James.
AI.
Yes.
Right now AI is the AI that we're seeing anyway, as far as like the memes and the art and
No,
the
they've
stuff.
censored the AI. I got to use the AI chat GPT. I got to talk to it before they censored it, and it told me a lot of stuff,
hmm
and then they dumbed it down.
A lot of the other stuff that's out there right now, other than like the real centralized, like the Chat GPT they were trying to work on, and a couple other things, a lot of the other AI is pretty dumb. Um,
Yes.
but it depends on
The
if you
comedy
look at it as
special.
just yeah, if you look at it as just this is what it is, then you don't really think about whether it's learning or not, because maybe it isn't. A lot of AI that's described as AI isn't truly AI,
AI
it's just
has a
really
hive
advanced.
mind, and it's all going back to the source.
So when you what they're trying to do is program it based on real life stuff to get it set to match with the quantum computing, and which would then combine with robotics because then you would have robotic AI being able to make decisions and do that kind of stuff for us. So you'd have your robotic servants and your robotic factory workers, and you'd
That's
have your
the after hour show where Spider gets drunk.
robotic pleasure models and things like that.
Yeah.
That's for a whole other thing. Um,
Have you
but
heard of the Antikythera?
oh yeah, yeah, the Antikythera mechanism. It's one
Yes.
of my favorite bits of technology from the old world because we still don't know exactly. I've seen a lot of really interesting simulations, but we still don't know exactly what it did and how big the entire device was. There's been a lot of good guesses, but we don't know. James is on a roll in the chat here.
Oh, it did let me post a link. That was
Oh,
my
there you go.
source. That was my source where I got my information on quantum computing.
Now, as far as all of this stuff separately, I can see it all being useful because we use 2 out of 3 in a lot of things right now. We've been using robotics for quite a long time, as far as like the auto industry uses robotics pretty advanced because most of the cars, like the base stuff on cars, are actually assembled by the robots, or a lot of factory things. A lot of mass-produced items are made via robotic, just boom, 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 and then
Yep.
the people at the end or along the line just make sure things are safe, or they're like do quality control
They're
and that kind
taking
of
our
thing.
jobs.
And so robotics has been around a lot for quite a long time. You don't think about it. You kind of take it for granted. And then when you see like those videos of them with the robotic combat dog thing,
Yeah.
or the ones delivering food in New York and stuff, and you're like, "Oh wow, robots, they've come a long way." But other robots have been doing a lot of more advanced things. They just do them in one spot, and it's just one big arm robot,
Yeah.
just assembling screws, like 20,000 screws in an hour or something like that. Um, but an AI has been around longer than it's been popularized. It's been a big thing for the last couple of years because of we're all using it for laughs right now. Um, the most popular use for AI is for voice mimicry and for deep fakes and things like that at the
YouTube
moment.
comedy specials.
And some of that stuff is funny. The best use of AI that I've seen so far has been when they do the voice mimicry. I
The
think that's
SpongeBob songs. They got one called Your Boy Sponge. Check it out
yep.
on Spotify and YouTube. It's
The
great.
presidents playing games together and things like
Yes.
that. I follow a lot of those because those are funny. Um, the stuff where they ask where they use the chat GPT and ask it to make its own scripts and things are funny, but they're also just they're stupid.
Yep.
They're dumb for the most part. Like, and you wonder like how is something like that going to advance into anything that's actually going to be threatening? And then again,
Time.
you have to. That's the thing. Depending on the algorithm that they're using, if it's true AI, then it's
And
learning all the time.
think about how quickly the AI learns compared to us, like you said a minute ago.
Hmm. If it's learning actively, then it's relatively quickly.
They're
One of
just
the
showing
things
us the. Oh, go ahead.
one of the things is that I've noticed is a lot of the AI that's available for the public is really, as you said earlier, from
That's
like
literally what
ChatGPT,
I
it's
was.
dumbed down.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say.
It's a version that I don't think learns very fast or very well, if at all, which makes it not really AI after a fashion and makes it just again high end
Do you
computation.
do you have a tinfoil hat? Cause I got a conspiracy
Let's
theory.
let's just let's fit that on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make like a little special song and a little like graphic in the future
Yeah.
for it's tinfoil time, and it's just gonna be like dun, dun, dun,
Yes.
for when we get into these
I got a
segments.
good
But
one. So I think they're releasing the dumb AI to the public to source the information, and then they're feeding it to the intelligent AI that they're keeping secret. Because if they release all the dumb AI and only allow us to see the dumb AI, then we become docile and we're like, oh, AI making funny videos. That's funny. When in reality, we're feeding it all the information it needs to destroy us.
potentially, um, I have a complicated outlook on most of our ideas of how AI would go about trying to keep us under control. Like I didn't like the
Thanks.
Matrix. I never have liked the Matrix movies. I'm a type of person that be like, okay, yeah, I could see that potentially happening, but I also don't believe it. I don't think it'd be as realistic. I would see more the Terminator thing first, but I also think you
Cordyceps zombies.
that's more likely because that's a natural thing and
And they
it
keep
doesn't
putting it in
require.
all the aids and all the supplements and all the
Hmm.
vitamins. And I'm like, I insist. Oh, another tinfoil hat time. I insist the government is intentionally putting cordyceps into as many vitamin supplements as possible to build up the virus and you know, as it evolves over time, I think they're trying to ingest all these humans with cordyceps so that the cordyceps can evolve to humans faster and learn to infect us sooner rather than later.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why you have to drink high proof spirits to kill off infections and germs.
Yes.
So while I'm destroying my liver, I'm keeping myself free of the zombie infection.
There you go.
So you take one with the other. Um, but I think the one thing, and maybe I take this for granted, maybe I've seen too many movies and I believe it too much, but I think any discussion of AI just it doesn't take into account human ingenuity because
It takes one person to program the AI to destroy the world.
sure. And then the other thing is that some of the worst things that can be done to a person are done by another person
Yep.
because the our creativity in doing both great things and absolutely horrible things to each other is nearly infinite. Like we can get pretty darn creative when we're coming up with some really bad things to do to each other. Um, and I don't think an AI is going to take the shortest distance from point A to point B. And if that fails, it's going to do the next point A to point B and keep on going down the line with various point A to point B plans, which is where the Terminator always went wrong because the strategy was always relatively the same. Do this to do this. Do this to do this. Whereas people are kind of like do this and then do this and 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 this. And you can predict what many people are going to do because not everybody thinks in the most creative ways, but there are a lot of people that do.
All right.
So
Don't know why it wouldn't let me post this comment, but James, you can add me on Facebook.
so with AI and with robotics pretty much set, the quantum computing area is what's really interesting because pardon me, one of the biggest areas I think where that can help us out and which
Cancer.
I've seen.
Oh, sorry. Whoops. Was that one of the code words?
Nope, I'm gonna let you talk about that part in a minute.
Okay.
In the medical usage, I'm gonna talk about communication
Okay.
because communication right now it's limited by our radio signals, it's limited by our cellular signals. When we eventually start moving off into space on a more regular basis and we need to communicate, you have to communicate via you can only communicate as far as light speed goes. You can't send signals faster than that. But if you use quantum computing on each end to send messages to each other, you could theoretically send them faster than light because it would be undermining the the very fabric of how all that stuff works.
Oh no.
So interstellar communication would be massively improved by quantum. Oh, theoretically, of course. I mean, that's just a guess. I've read a lot of stories about it, and I've read some practical, actual like thought about it from scientific papers. They're not sure how it could be done, but it is a potentially, and because it's basically taking string theory and harnessing it for your own use as far as communication goes. So that's one area that I think quantum computing could potentially really benefit us. Now, the other one, of course, as you're going to bring up, is the medical area. So, how about it?
All right. So this one is probably going to sound a little complicated, but let me think of how to word this exactly. Nature is binary and frequencies. Like the viruses are coded with binary code. So my understanding, if I understand it correctly, is basically quantum computing can calculate all the different potential infections. Sorry, not a code word, is it?
I don't think so. It depends on how many times you're going to use it. But
Okay, I'll keep it short then.
as long as you don't say the V word, the VAC
Yeah.
word,
Okay.
that'll get us flagged.
Okay. That thing that gets into your body and causes bad things to happen. You know, that stuff. It's on a binary code, and essentially when it gets into your body, it does a 0 or a 1. It either, hurts you or it doesn't hurt you, which means that essentially every single bad thing that can happen in your body in that, terminology is literally a RNG. Every single time you've ever gotten sick in your life has literally just been a roll of the dice and RNG. Every single time. And every single time you've gotten healthy has also just been RNG, a roll of the dice. So basically, what I'm getting at is quantum computing. They think that it might be able to calculate faster the possibility of you getting, bad before the bad thing can hurt you.
And as a predictive model, that's a really, really valuable tool. Because we already know genetically that a lot of genetic disorders are caused by a single bit of DNA deciding whether it's active
And we
or
have
not
mapped out the
active.
human genome.
Whether it's a 1 or a 0, it's basically the
Yeah.
same thing. Everything runs off the basic concept. Either it's on or it's off.
Every cell in our body, right?
The quantum mechanics or the quantum computing can look at that and see both the 1 and the 0 at the same time.
But the
And
problem
theoretically,
is, uh, as thing like Ant-Man said, yes, random reference, I know, but like they said in Ant-Man, in quantum mechanics and quantum computing, as things get smaller and smaller, they become more and more unpredictable.
and that's also true because that gets into the absolute nitty gritty, where if you get down to that level and you look at a single particle, that's what causes the superposition. You just, as soon as you see it, it's one or
It's
the
there.
other. And then it's always been one or the other,
Yeah.
which is really the freaky part. It's never been both or neither. It's
And
always been that thing that you noticed it as.
And the fun part is we have done hundreds and hundreds of experiments with different scientists all over the world to prove this.
It's a
Same
basis.
thing,
It's a basis for teleportation technology. Um, they started out.
like Deadpool.
They started out trying to send particles of data from one physical drive to another physical drive. They are not up to, as far as we're aware anyway, they're not up to the level of full physical objects, but they have sent physical data points where a bit of written data on a drive from one side of a room to another. It's taken huge amounts of energy. It's ridiculous the amount of energy to do that. But it's been done, and it all revolves around that quantum computing. And whether any of this will have been solved in my lifetime, I don't know. I mean, I still plan on being here for quite a lot longer, but I don't know. I think they're
2050.
what's that?
There's a lot of predictions for a lot of stuff happening by 2050.
Could be. That all ties possibly into the whole like singularity idea, in which case there's going to be a rush of tech and information, and everything's just going to accelerate all at once. Like the Industrial Revolution,
Yeah.
everything happened a ton because history is marked by
And that's why we have
periods,
flying cars now.
and we do. We
Yep.
do have flying cars. And once people made the initial ones, they've advanced to the level where you actually have a car that the tail extends
I
and
saw
the
that.
wings flip out, and you can actually
It
fly it
looks
like a little,
terrifying.
like a Cessna. You can fly it
Yep.
along, and then you land it. Everything retracts perfectly. It doesn't hang out too far out. It actually retracts in such a way that it folds up the way it needs to. So we are getting to that point. Now, whether you, again, that's another thing in my lifetime, whether there'll be legal,
Cyberpunk.
yeah, but
James. Nah, you're gonna be immortal just like the rest of us, James.
but there will be potentially an explosion of technology and advancements, just boom, 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 happening at once, because that's how history works. Uh, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, Industrial Revolution was one of them. The move from hunter gatherers to city states was, while that took a few thousand years, it was relatively quickly compared to the actual scale of how things happen evolution wise. Because we had vast cities and things in the Middle East, huge buildings and everything within a very short geological time frame. And that's what we're due for. We're due for another big technological leap. Right now, we're stuck in a little zone where, oh, the new iPhone's coming out. What's different? Not
It
much.
has 19 billion electrodes. Or
Oh, the
not
next one's coming
electrodes.
out in six
Qubits.
months. What's different about
Sorry.
that one? Oh, not too
Qubits.
much, etc., etc., etc. And it's just basically slight improvements on the same thing. We're kind of stagnant on our overall technology in everyday use, but there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes.
Okay. One thing I wanted to mention that I just remembered is transistors. The physical manifestation of a bit is called a transistor, and it's like a switch. Just like a
Mhm.
bit, it can exist in one of two states, such as on and off. The more physical transistors you have, the more information you will be able to process at once. And to give you an idea of this concept, an old computer back when we first released the PC to the public probably had about 250 transistors, where modern day iPhone would likely have closer to 19 billion
Yeah.
transistors. You said iPhone, and all that popped
Yeah.
in my
Well,
head.
that's a good example because they're putting out a new one like every, not
Yeah.
even every year, it's every half a year almost, like
Every
almost
3 or
every
4
6 months.
months, it feels like.
Um, but and the interesting thing about transistors is I believe one of the main proponents of a transistor is the element gold,
Yes.
which tells you just how important gold is to the technological world. And it's why, again, putting that hat on, it's why our money
Is
and the
paper.
dollar is no longer based on the gold standard. It's now on a credit system that used to be gold, which is why it's established. It's like established credit. If you've ever
Yeah.
gotten a credit card, or if you've ever tried to get a credit card and they've told you you don't have enough credit, you have to establish the credit first.
Mhm.
That's what we did. We used gold as our collateral to establish the strength of our money. And then once we got it to a certain point where everybody believed it was worth a certain amount, we don't need the gold anymore. It's all based on the idea that it was valuable, which is interestingly,
Our money is a figment of our imagination.
it's interesting because that's what they're doing with cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency
Mhm.
inherently has no value,
It
but
doesn't exist.
somebody believed it does and
Mhm.
convinced somebody else that
Hey, this is valuable.
it was worth even more than what they believed it was. And that's where it started and that's where it continues. Cryptocurrency skipped that credit building stage and just took a small amount of people to, like, yeah, we believe it's worth this much. And they convinced another group of people it's worth this much. You should pay this much for it. Okay. Now that we've had it for a little while, now it's more valuable. So we're going to sell it for more and we're going to sell it for more. And a lot of people turned into billionaires pretty quick.
This is the world we live in. Getting
And it's
rich off
worth,
of fools.
yeah, it's worth nothing, which is why it's such a problem to the big financial institutions because they know that it started out being worth nothing, but they know how much people are paying for it, and now they want in.
Yep.
So, and that's why it crashes all the time too, because it's so unstable because it all depends on how
There's
many
nothing
people
to pay
believe in the
out.
value.
What are you gonna pay them with?
It's a very interesting. I know a lot of people have always have told me, "Oh yeah, cryptocurrency is the future," and it probably is, but it's going to be a long time before it gets there. A
And
lot of
it'll be a
people are going to
dark
get very
future.
rich, and a lot of people are going to get very poor until it gets to a level where it actually means something. And then eventually, I think it's still going to end up being based on something physical. Right now, it's based on data, which you could argue is physical. But I don't know. Then you have to verify the accuracy of the data and things like that. And that's not something that people have considered either. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a tough area. Um, I don't have a whole lot more. I figured this was going to be a very compact kind of episode. But if you have some more things to add before we finish up,
Yeah, I could say a little bit more about the robotic skin.
yeah, throw that out there so that we
All right.
can fill out some more
So
of this time here.
scientists in Tokyo, of course Tokyo, because that's my favorite place, have created synthetic human skin and attached it to a robotic face so that it can create rudimentary human emotions. And yes, I do have the link on the group page now. They claim this could lead to new advances in robotics, giving robots the ability to self heal as well as having an advanced sense of touch. Yes, I said the robots can heal themselves. Professor Shoji Takeuchi says that manipulating soft, wet biological tissues is much more difficult than laymen, people that are not in the field, may at first believe. For example, the tissue could die if it were to be infected with even the smallest issue of sterility, as a single bad thing could kill the entire tissue sample. They say that this skin will allow robots new abilities such as self healing through the use of chemical based materials with a self healing function that must be activated by certain triggers such as heat, pressure, and other signals, and that they will not proliferate like normal cells. The synthetic biological skin will be able to repair minor lacerations, much like ours does, and the nerves and other organs can be added in for use, sensing, and other such things. It seems they're striving to make cyborgs and sense a reality. Like I said earlier, it kind of reminds me of Fallout 4 and Cyberpunk, Westworld, that kind of stuff. And while they may have managed to replicate human appearance by creating a face with the same surface material and structure as a human, they have also identified new problems in the future of the field, such as surface wrinkles and a thicker epidermis to appear more human like. They already have a few ideas for how to create a thicker looking skin by adding in sweat glands, sebaceous glands, pores, blood vessels, fat, and nerves. And if you'll give me 1 second, I'm actually going to Google sebaceous glands because I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm familiar with the term right off the top of my head. I am going to throw out a little theoretical while you're looking. Um, they say that it's not supposed to proliferate outside of the form that they give it, but we're also working on nanotechnology. And nanotechnology with the tiny robotic nanites um, involves building and repairs and things like that, and they're working on medical things
Yes,
with that. So what if
that is
they
super
decide
interesting.
that they do want to proliferate this or
They could do that. I fully
proliferate
believe.
the skin?
Yeah, I fully believe they could do that. So, sebaceous glands, I guess if I'm pronouncing that properly, are microscopic glands in the skin that produce sebum, an oily substance that protects and lubricates the skin. They're also part of the integumentary system, which also includes the hair and the nails. So basically, it's like the stuff that keeps our nails and hair like oily and greasy all the time.
Hmm.
And movement is another problem, and they believe that they may need more sophisticated actuators as muscles. They say it's very motivating for them to try and create robots that are able to move more accurately, sense their environment, and perform tasks with human like dexterity.
Yeah, because considering that a robotic organism, for
Moves
lack of a better word, can
very
move in
differently.
suddenly and it can move very quickly outside of athletic ways that we can
Yeah.
move. If you make a sudden move like that, it would tear a whole bit of skin like right off or right in half.
Yeah. Like the metal on the inside would rip through it or something.
Yeah, so you'd end up with a lot of need
Blood.
for repairs and things like that, and there'd be a lot of guts and gore everywhere.
Maybe
So
that's
that's
why they want to
interesting.
put the organs in there.
I'm gonna leave everybody with that visual of a robot just like moving quickly and like tearing up its organs.
Yes. Beautiful.
All right, but I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thanks, of course, James, for being in the chat room. You've kept it hopping in there. Next week we should have Rob back, and we'll have another topic. um, there is the 100th episode of the Spirits Club coming out very soon. Once I edit all the videos together, I had to make multiple videos, and it's a big sprawling
Ooh, nice.
thing. And it's taking me some time, but that'll be out soon as well. Hopefully, in time for the next show, if not immediately after. And I don't think we have anything else upcoming. I have my nightly to semi-nightly streams going on. Do you have anything going on regularly or irregularly in the streaming area?
I'm on Twitch every once in a while, but not on a regular basis.
I do. We are kind of brainstorming ideas behind the scenes for more content for the YouTube channel here as well. I had a couple of ideas, and I was gonna just do them, and then I've lost track of time, and I haven't had the time to go
Yeah,
back to that yet. Um,
life gets way
but
too busy.
we are working on some things to add more
Thank you,
content to the
James.
channel overall, and so keep an eye for anything that might show up and kind of surprise you out of nowhere. So, that's all for me. Is there anything else from you, Steven?
We love you all, and you're all great.
Well, there you go. So we will catch everyone next week.